Hello everyone. All right, so the topic today is a little bit personal. If it's something that you're not interested in, then scroll on by. It's a little bit sad. I'm going to be talking about saying goodbye to my daddy. So if you're interested, please stay tuned. I will be right back. Alrighty everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yvette. The channel is Polished After 60 and I go over topics for the more mature women, those of us who are 60 and older. And so as I mentioned, today I'm just going to be talking about having to say goodbye to one of the biggest loves of my life, my daddy. So I hope it's not going to be too sad. I hope it's going to be joyous because that is my intent. So anyway, first of all, I do want to give my thanks and appreciation to all of those who reached out to me during these last few difficult months. I appreciate it more than you will ever know. In fact, honestly, I was surprised that some of you out there reached out and were more kind than people that were close to me that didn't reach out at all, right? So, and that's something we deal with, I think, as we get older. Sometimes it's difficult to know what to say to someone who is grieving or who is having a difficult time. And so sometimes we don't say anything at all. And although I understand that, it is difficult as someone who has always tried to be there for my friends and family, to not have that reciprocated. And I understand it. It's very difficult for some people to reach out to you. They themselves are grieving and maybe they don't want to say the wrong thing, and so they stay quiet. And so my advice to you is, if you have a loved one or a friend who's in a difficult situation, like the situation that my family has been through, just be there. Just call that person up and say, hi, I'm here if you need to talk, because a lot of times that really is all that we need to hear, just to know that someone cares enough to reach out to us. So that is my advice to all of you. So I have done a few videos in the past about having to deal with an aging parent, what they call, I guess they call it the sandwich generation, when we have children and grandchildren that we are taking care of. We're at an age ourselves, which is difficult, and then we may have aging parents that we also need to take care of. So when my father died, he died on the 31st of December. He was 89 years old. My mother will be 92 next week. I can't believe it. So, and he's always been in very good health, with the exception of diabetes. He is a diabetic and had been a diabetic for more than 50 years, possibly 60 years. He maintained it very well. He never had any issues, although towards the end, he was suffering from a little bit of neuropathy in the legs, and that poor thing, it was really hard for him not to be able to move. My dad, I live in Florida, in the Tampa Bay area, and my father actually ran in the first Gasparilla Day parade, or Gasparilla run, I guess. They did a 5K run, and I remember him working out and, working to get up his strength to be able to run the marathon. I guess they call it. See, I don't do those things, so I don't know what they're called. But in the first one that they ever had in Tampa, he was able to run the entire thing. He went across the finish line. We have pictures of him, and it was such a fun thing for him to do. So as he got older and as he started to lose the ability to walk as he wanted to. He had to walk with a walker at the end. It was very difficult for him. But other than that, he had been in very good health. In fact, he used to tell me, I'm 89 years old. I've never been in the hospital. Once he was in the hospital for diverticulitis in all the years that he was alive. So he was very proud of that he had been able to keep a healthy life, right? But at the end, that all really, really changed. Looking back at it, I realize now that it probably began. He had a car accident in August, and I think that was the beginning of his issues because, you know, as he was driving still. But, you know, as we were trying to get information from him, he couldn't remember what happened. He kept saying that it was the car's fault, which, you know, we all know it probably wasn't. He probably hit, you know, the gas instead of the brakes, and that's what happened. My father always does things in grand style, so he hit two parked cars, a Maserati and a Mercedes-Benz. So I don't think he ever knew that. The firefighters actually told me that. I don't know if it was right for them to tell me that. But anyway, because I wasn't there, I actually was out of town when it happened. So my son handled everything. But looking back, I realize now that that was probably the beginning. And then progressively he got worse. He had a couple of falls, and I had to be with them more and more as his health deteriorated. Starting in end of September or beginning of October, my dates are very fuzzy. He experienced a fall, actually several falls, both at home. He had one fall where he fell at like 4 o'clock in the morning. They didn't want to bother me. They didn't call me, and my poor daddy laid on the floor until 7:30 when they finally called me. And I was like, why didn't you call the ER, call the ambulance? But anyway, they did. And when I got to his house, I remember them having him on the stretcher. He had a little black eye and was swollen, and poor little thing, he looked a mess. But they took him to the hospital, and from then on out, he was back and forth from the hospital to the rehabilitation center. There was one rehabilitation center that I was not at all happy with. Thank goodness we took him out of there. I didn't like it from the beginning, but my mother liked it because it was close by, and finally I told her no. He's not going to go there. And then the final two places where he was at, they were very kind to him, took care of him. There was a little break in between those visits where he actually came home, and we tried to take care of him. If you've never taken care of an elderly patient who they're not able to do anything for themselves, I will tell you it's very difficult. And unless you are trained, it is almost impossible to do. And it took me a while to get, you know, we had a few people come in to help, you know, bathe him and change him. But other than that, we were it, right? And I believe, and I said that to my mother at the end, we are killing him with love. We want him to be here so much that we're not realizing that we're not putting his best health at the top of the list, right? So we took him to the hospital, and then he was discharged to the rehabilitation center, where I think he spent 4 weeks or so until he finally had to go back to the hospital. But all in all, and this may sound strange, it really was a wonderful and beautiful time for me to spend with him. We got to talk about life, about things, and we got closer and closer, closer than we've ever been before. And I am a daddy's girl. So for me to say that, things really were lovely at the end. I was able to be with him. There were maybe 2 or 3 days when I wasn't able to visit him for health reasons of my own. But other than that, my mother and I were with him on a daily basis, taking care of him, feeding him, trying to get him to eat food. Guys, if any of you are dealing with this, there is a YouTube channel. I think the girl's name is Julie. She is a hospice nurse or worker, and she puts out videos that are so very helpful. But I myself had volunteered for hospice pre-COVID. I had volunteered for hospice, so I was familiar with the signs that we see as someone is entering their final chapter, their last days life. So I knew it was very evident before my eyes that my daddy was in a precarious situation, and that he probably would not have much time here with us any longer. The saddest thing is that I tried to prepare my mom. I would talk to her, and it was very difficult for her. Now, you know, my mom and dad were married for, it'll be 70 years this July, so almost their entire lives, and they dated for a while before then as well. So most of their entire lives were spent with one another. And my mom, who saw the movie The Notebook, actually in her mind had made herself believe that that was going to happen to them at the end. And so I was trying to prepare her and explain to her that that probably wouldn't happen. Very hard discussions with my mother, but her mind was closed, and she didn't want to hear anything about that. So it was very, very difficult at the end for her. My dad's final last 2 days were it was a little bit difficult. The day before he passed, we went to see him at the rehabilitation center, and of course he didn't want to eat. He was not feeling well at all. Those poor CNAs, who are really, really heroes, if we find the right staff and the right place to send our parents to. They were so kind to him. They had to change him, I think, about 4 or 5 times during the day, during the time that I was there with him. He was very nauseous, was throwing up, not feeling well, did not want to eat or drink at all. I left him in the afternoon. By the time I left him, he had settled down. They had given him something to settle his stomach. He was resting. He was actually napping. You know, he told me, I'm so tired, you know. He's like, I want to sleep. Do you mind if y'all let me sleep? And I said, that's all right, Daddy. We'll go ahead and go home, and we'll see you tomorrow. Well, later that evening, his nurse called me up to tell me that his blood sugar had gone very low, and they were sending him to the hospital. So of course I ran to the hospital. I was with him. He seemed very well. They had gotten his blood sugar back up. Everything seemed to be going at a better pace. I was with him. I don't remember what time I got there. I was with him till after midnight. We got him to eat a little bit of Jello and drink a little something, because they were trying to get his sugar back up. We talked a little bit, and finally he said, oh, you know, it's getting late and you can't drive at night. He's like, go ahead and go home, and I'll see you tomorrow. So, and I will also mention that probably the last few months of his life, we had such a good time laughing and joking around. And my poor daddy, one of the sweetest things he did was he would have me, only me, change his socks, because he said that I was so gentle and so tender with him when I took off his socks, because he had a little bit of an ingrown toenail, poor thing, and it hurt him so much. And he would tell the CNAs, you're not doing it right, you need to do it the way my daughter does it. She's so gentle with me, right? And that's something that I'm going to always carry with me, because he told me, I knew you loved me, Abby. He used to call me Abby. I knew you loved me, Abby. I just never realized how much you loved me. And that also was a comfort to me. To my mother, I think it was the day before he passed, he told her, my father was such a romantic. I didn't realize it until the time, those last few months that we spent together. But he loved my mother so much, and he told her, what a sweet thing. He said, I was yours from the moment that I saw you, or I lay my eyes on you, is what he said. It's such a beautiful sentiment, right? But he was a romantic. He was a sweet, sweet man. But anyway, the morning of his death, I did not tell my mother that he had gone to the emergency room, because it was late at night. I didn't want to worry her, so I went by myself. The next morning I got up early. I picked her up at home, and I explained to her that he had been sent to the hospital. So when we got to the hospital, I could hear him. He was having a discussion with the nurses. He wasn't very happy. He was at the end of the hallway, just in a regular room. But when I walked into the room, there were many, many nurses and doctors there. And I knew that it was, I had left him the night before. He was doing well. But that morning when I got there, everything had changed. And so I let my mother in. She did not handle this at all very well, even though I had tried to prepare her. It's difficult to lose someone that you love for so many years. So I actually I was there by myself. It was just me and my mom. I actually had to leave the room that he was in, take her out of the room, and take her to a waiting room, because her agony was there was so much agony in her that she was causing a lot of distress for my father. And I knew it was a difficult situation, very precarious, and I did not want him to have the added stress of seeing us in pain. So I took her aside. I immediately called my son. I explained what had happened and asked him to hurry up and come so that he could take care of, we have a very small family, guys. So I asked him to come and take care of my mom, who he calls her Biba. My father was his Biba, while I handled the situation at hand. So I went in, I talked to the doctors and the nurses. They had decided that they were going to move him to ICU. There were things that he could do, but his situation was just so precarious. All of his bodily functions were beginning to end. And so even if they were able to save his life, they didn't give us a good chance that he would survive for very much longer. So I understood that. They sent him to the ICU unit. My son had come. We were all gathered together as a family. I explained to my mother what was going on, and we went to the ICU unit at St. Joseph's Hospital North in Lutz, Florida. They were so kind, and to the nursing staff and the doctors there, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate all of you for all of the work that they did and the help that they provided my family and my dad at the end, because they were so kind and generous and considerate with us that I have no words. So I again had to have my mother move to the furthest area of the room, because she kept, it was very hard for her, and she was distressing my father. And I wanted to have his last hours be as peaceful as possible. So we would take turns, my son and I would take turns bringing her over to sit, next to the hospital by his, next to the hospital bed, and be able to hold his hand. But at the end, we were all there. We surrounded him with love. we played a little bit of Spanish music, merengue, and my son and I stood up and danced so that he could see that even though he was leaving us, we were joyful in the knowledge that we were all with him, that we would be with him till the very end of his life, and that he needn't worry because we were united as a family, and that our desire and our hopes are that one day we'll be able to see him again. So to my daddy, this is actually, guys, this is the first time I've been able to cry since my daddy's death, because of course after my dad passed I had to take care of my mother, so that has been very challenging. But Daddy, you know how much I love you. I'm so proud to have been your daughter. And guys, if you get the chance to be with your loved ones, even if it's just for a day or for a little while, I think you will never regret the chance. I think it's one of my biggest privileges in life to have been by my dad's side when he passed away. So if ever you have the chance to be with your loved ones, it's a difficult thing, but I encourage you because you will never have any regrets in your life. So anyway, guys, this is my goodbye to my daddy, and I just wanted to share this deeply personal part of my life with all of you because I have so many beautiful friends here. Mona, if you're watching me, Mona from About Face with Mona, she has been an absolutely wonderful friend during this time. And I thank you for that, Mona. Thank you. And so many others, Billy, just so many others. There's too many for me to name. Barbara Jean, you as well. Thank you, everyone who sent me your condolences and your prayers. There's just too many for me to remember, but you all are in my heart. So thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And this is a little bit of a sad video, but not so sad because my daddy is resting now and he's no longer suffering. And that is such a comfort to my heart. So anyway, guys, I love you all. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Bye, everyone.